Win big with new DRF All Access past performances. With one best-in-class product, you now get all 3 past performance formats. Go to DRF.com and use coupon code 1FREEPP for a free single card today.
Hey everyone, Ashley Mailloux here with the Daily Racing Form. This Saturday, January 27th, out at Santa Anita Park, their feature race is race number 8. It's the Grade 2 San Pasqual at 1 1/8. And this Grade 2 event is for 4-year-olds and upward. And we'll take a look at this field here that's been assembled for this event. And it's a field of 8. There's some nice names in here, though. We'll see Stiletto Boy try to get another victory under his belt. Newgate, Grange, Mr. Fisk, I think, to me, all major players in this spot, and even a horse such as Mixto, who they took a little bit of a chance on last time out, putting him in the Grade 2 San Antonio, and he was the runner-up behind New Grange. So field of 8 that gets kicked off here with the number 1, 2 Rivers Over, but you almost forgot about it. The pace projections here for Timeform US, we'll take a look at those real quickly. Not shocking to see New Grange kind of out there by himself. I do think he might get some pressure from a couple other runners in here, but he's been known to rattle off some quick fractions early on, or at least be close to quick fractions in those spots. You can see the number 3, I'm Gonna Be Somebody. He could be forwardly placed. He took his last race gate to wire, but different surface. That was at Golden Gate Fields over the synthetic. And just one thing to note here, you do see the late pace flag here on the number 6, Mr. Fisk. He's been a big closer. 2 starts back in the Shared Belief, but he still was able to draw clear in there by 8 lengths, but dead heated in that event. So interesting complexion here for the San Pasqual. And now I can dive into it with number 1, 2 Rivers Over. We'll actually take a look at his most recent race, which is a victory in the Zia Park Derby. And looking at the trip that he got, he was quite forward in this race. You can see we circled him here on the screen. And with him being so forward, you're going to see him actually kind of grind it out here and take a little bit of a step forward. Other horses look like they might be able to catch him here. You see the 3, the 2, and the 5. They're all making up ground. But when he's called upon, he was still able to draw clear in here by 2 lengths. He scored a big upset. He was 13-1, got a 90 buyer speed figure that event. And they tried some different things with him. You saw him on the turf 3 starts back, and he was able to pick up that win 2 starts back, and then they put him in Zia Park. Hey, $300,000 race, and he was able to win it quite easily. Now he's just going to make that second start since September. Obviously, the waters are deeper here. You go down the page, he's been in some softer spots, but a confidence-boosting effort nonetheless. And Edward Maldonado going to ride here for Doug O'Neill. Now we'll move on to the number 2 here, Stiletto Boy. I mentioned his name. I've always been a really big fan of this horse. He's a 6-year-old son of Shackelford, who he's 4 for 26 in his career, over $1.8 million in purse earnings, and just been a little head scratcher in his last 4. I thought, they took a chance with him after he won the Santa Anita handicap back in early 2023, and they put him then to Oaklawn, and I loved his race at Oaklawn. He just got denied, and what a tough way to lose. 3rd, beaten by a head, but he had to take pressure all the way around the racetrack, and since then, we just haven't seen the same Stiletto Boy that we once knew, and he's a horse that, we've seen this in the past. He can get back on track, but a little tough to use, especially off his most recent performance where both New Grange and Mixto were able to finish in front of him. But he is just going to make that second start since late September. And you see he's booked to ride. Mike Smith, who has ridden him before, actually rode him in the Pegasus World Cup back in 2023 when he was 3rd in that event behind Art Collector and Defunded. The number 3, I'm Going to Be Somebody. We saw he has the chance to be at least close to the pace in here. He was able to win last time out at Golden Gate Fields, going a mile and a 16th. But you go down the page, he does have a dirt win. You can see it came at Fresno in the Bulldog, where he was quite forward, drew off, won quite easily. But this is going to be a test for him. He's never raced locally at Santa Anita. His dirt experience has just been kind of on the fair circuit. And outside of that, we've really only seen him at Golden Gate. But Kazushi Kimura is booked to ride, comes here off a win, but from a figures perspective is going to need to take a step forward. Now we'll move on to the number 4, Newgate, who we do have a replay to show for. Now you look at his most recent race, that's what we're going to take a look at. He ends up being 2nd in here. He doesn't get the job done. Big City Lights, who is forward here, is on the lead at 7-5, is going to get the job done. But I thought this was a really nice late run for him. He was ridden by Frankie Dettori in this spot. Frankie, not in California this Saturday, going to be out at Gulfstream Park. But he grinds it out here. And the thing to remember is we're talking about this was a race off a long layoff. We hadn't seen him between February 2023, January 2024, and I think they did the right thing. They brought him back at 6.5. Now he's going to stretch out in distance. I think he's going to love it. When we go to that race 2 back, it was going a mile and a 16th when he's able to win a grade 3 event, and it was going longer, obviously. So I think we're going to see a huge improvement from him on Saturday. Joel Rosario, set to ride. We see the number 5, Newgate is up next in here. We'll take a look at his most recent performance. It was back on Boxing Day, or the day after Christmas. And you see this performance in the Grade 2 San Antonio. It was a compact field. We mentioned Stiletto Boy doesn't really show up, but Grange certainly was able to show up. You see him here. He's the number 4. He was on the outside. He gets called upon here, but he does kind of take off once again. He's going to draw clear by 2 1/4 lengths. You can see he tends to be quite forward in his races. He exits some quick races, and the pace projections, it looks like Grange could maybe be lonely here on the lead. And if that's the case, this race could be gone after the gates open. But I wonder what's going to happen. His best races have been at Santa Anita. The distance is another thing to maybe consider. He does have a win at 1 1/8, and when did that come? It came in last year's San Pasqual, but since then, his only other win was at 1 1/16, and we'll have to see what he can do stretching back out in distance and if he gets pace pressure in here, but certainly a live one to look at in this event. The number 6, Mr. Fisk, we saw he had the late pace flag attached to him, and we'll take a look at one of his races, and that was last time out. We're looking at the race at Del Mar back on the 26th of November, the Grade 3 Native Diver. I like that he was closer to the pace. I thought this was a really nice ride from Juan Hernandez. He didn't get too far away from the field in here, and it worked out to his advantage because the pace wasn't all that quick, and he's just going to draw clear quite nicely in here. He beats Skinner. He beats Grange, and I think if there is a hot pace, Mr. Fisk could certainly be closing late in the spot and have a really big shot. So for me, he's a horse that I think you really have to consider in here, and curious to see what the morning line will be set at for him. But if he offers a little bit of value, I think he's one to look at. Now, the number 7, Mixto, I alluded to it earlier. They took a chance with him. He broke his maiden back on November 17th at Del Mar. And where did he show up next? The Grade 2 San Antonio. And he was simply second best behind Grange. But, Doug O'Neill must have thought, hey, he's got a shot. Let's put him in here. It wasn't a big field. And he had a nice second place finish, a career best by or speed figure. I just wonder, this is a little bit of a deeper field, in my opinion, than the San Antonio. So he'll need to take another step forward to be a major player against this group. And then finally, rounding it out is the number 8, War at Sea, who he's tough to make a case for the main reason of we don't know what he can do on the dirt. You have to go pretty far back to November of 2021 to find his dirt races. He didn't graduate until March of 2022. It was on the turf, and since then we've seen him solely on the turf, with that exception being 2 starts back at Golden Gate in that Grade 3 event. Now, he did win that race, but it is just interesting to see him back on the dirt. To me, he's accomplished. Obviously, he's a Grade 3 winner. He's had some nice performances, even a Grade 2 event back in 2022, but the footing, I just don't know how he's going to handle it. So it'll be interesting to see what his tactics are on the surface switch. But that's the field of 8 for the San Pasqual. A nice betting race here, and I'll be honest, in terms of my top pick, I was torn between 2 horses here. Really like Mr. Fisk. I think he could be interesting if the pace is hot in this spot. I also thought Newgate was maybe the horse to use as well. So ultimately, in terms of my top pick here, I did go to the number 4, Newgate. I do think he's one to use in this spot. I think you have to consider him. He's got major considerations, especially stretching out back in distance. But it was hard to not use Mr. Fisk on top. I used him for second, followed by Grange. And Mixto, you look at what he faced. He's going to face several of those rivals again from the San Antonio. So I think he could at least kind of round things out in here. But for me, Newgate and Mr. Fisk are my top 2 players in this year's edition of the San Pasqual. Best of luck.